Hi, welcome to If You Live It. Welcome to a quick introduction to this Wednesday video where we're diving deeper into Chapter 9, Step 9 of If You Live It, the book, Experiencing Reason. So let's look at the timestamps real quick. Quick intro so you can decide if you want to spend your time here surrendering over aspects with regards to this program, learning more about God, finding hope, joy, happiness, peace in the process, or moving on to another video. So first, we're going to have on our first timestamp, reason, logic, and intellect. How are they connected? What are they? Second timestamp, content and context. How does content arise out of context? And so on and so forth. Next, we move into the characteristics of God, specifically looking at how love is an experienceable characteristic of the infinite nature of God. We move into knowing God versus understanding what a religion might say about God. Then we move into opinions and beliefs, how they are separators from actually choosing the reality of God as an experienceable reality. Service is a pathway. And then lastly, real quick, if you live it as a pathway, what is it, what isn't, how can it help? I hope you enjoy this video if you continue to watch. And if this doesn't sound like it's for you, peace and love, regardless. Have a great day. IfYouLiveIt.com, check it out. Bye. Welcome to If You Live It, a pathway to freedom, a book, a program, a channel, a website, a community, all designed to help you transcend your ego, fears, all illusions, all attachments, aversions, belief systems, the mind itself. That is the root, that is the basis, that is the entirety of why this exists. The program in and of itself is the 12 steps. Surrounding the program, surrounding the 12 steps originally created as the basis of Alcoholics Anonymous, as one of the three pillars of AA, is this lifetime, the story of this person, the failures, the triumphs, the process, hell, heaven, everything in between. It's also pointing back to Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Lao Tzu, and others. It's pointing back to religious truths, spiritual truths, truth on truth on truth on truth on truth. Today's video is a conversation about reason, about step 9, chapter 9 of If You Live It, the book, which is always free online in pieces and parts with regards to singular chapters and is soon to be available in print form, in book form, via online booksellers, via Fig Tree Publishing, via the website of If You Live It. These are exciting times. Next month, April, we're starting meetings. We're starting in-person and online meetings. Online meetings will be twice a month, in-person meetings twice a month. Online meetings, anyone can join, anyone can be a part of. Anywhere you are in the world, feel free to come in and see what this is all about. Thousands and thousands of people have subscribed to the YouTube channel. Thousands and thousands of people have checked out the website and the content on the website. I cannot wait to have the hindsight of a year, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to see the impact this program constituted in this way impacts the world in a positive manner. I make no money from this. This is not my job. This is a labor of love. This is how I serve God. I serve God by serving you in this capacity. These videos do nothing but point back to the central pillar, which is If You Live It, the book, If You Live It, the program. If you live it, which is practical applied spirituality in the form of the 3 parts of the program, the root and the basis being surrender, forgiveness, and gratitude, and then all encapsulated with service. There is no possible way that you could surrender your life over and learn how to truly surrender, then move into a world where you're forgiving everyone for everything all the time while learning how to actually do that and arrive at a place where you're grateful for the new lens, the new subjective reality that's presented itself. There is no way that you cannot escalate in the world of consciousness upwards into a world where love or unconditional love or sainthood is not your reality. You can reach these places in this lifetime. Enlightenment is a whole different ballgame, but this can be a compass for you to reach that final doorway where karma, your intent, and just an unyielding will to know God must be present to be able to walk through that final doorway. But this program, this book, this entire community can help take you to that doorstep. This is truth, untruth, untruth. You will not find falsehood. You'll not find the person speaking to you hiding behind fear in any way whatsoever, keeping anything from you. The book, if you live it, goes into embarrassing details, goes into the life of this person speaking to you, Mason Wooldridge, goes into moments where I share with you being on the precipice of killing myself, of experiencing God imminently, to mountaintop experiences, all the way to where I failed with regards to holding on to desires and attachments and aversions and wanting and craving and trying to get. This entire book is a demonstration of a life lived for God, a life pursuing truth, and all the ups and downs that were part of it. Again, my name is Mason Wooldridge. I'm the author of If You Live It. I'm the founder of this channel and this website. I'm so excited to bring to you today further details about reason, about the intellect, about Chapter 9, Step 9 of If You Live It, the book, the program. What are we living when we think about reason and the intellect? We are living logically. We are living at a place where we're seeing that we've come from courage, or we've come from willingness, or we've come from acceptance, or we've come from lower levels of fear and shame and guilt, remorse, apathy, pride, anger, desire, out to get. And where we arrive here is where we use the mind to go through the mind. The intellect is the last barrier that has to be transcended before one has the opportunity to be love, to actually be it for the world. If you take Christianity to its final extent, it delivers you into love and the doorway of unconditional love. If you live it as a pathway all the way to the final doorway, it puts you into a place where you can see the doorway to enlightenment, where you can become unconditional love. This is not better than, this is not less than, this is not in competition with. This is another expression of Jesus in a program, in words, in dialogue, in a book, in a way that you can know Jesus firsthand. This is another way that you can know the teachings of Krishna firsthand, the teachings of the Buddha firsthand, the teachings of Lao Tzu firsthand, the teachings that come from the Upanishads firsthand. This person speaking to you is out of the way from what's being delivered to you. This mouth has been surrendered over. These words have been surrendered over. This video is a gift for you from God, to you watching this. If you've made it this far, you might be asking yourself, what does reason have to do with anything? What does logic have to do with anything? What does the intellect have to do with anything? If we look at consciousness as the context out of which content is allowed to have definition, a shared definition that we may give it, a scientific background and understanding for that definition, our names, our places, our longitude and latitude, our brain waves, the electrical impulses pulsating throughout the body, throughout the nervous system, sending that information back up to the brain, processing information without the ability to know the difference between truth and falsehood when anything visually imprints on it. Logic would say that the brain and the mind are what we are. Logic would say that if there's a down, there's an up. Logic would say if there's a left, there's a right. Logic would say on its face value that there's hot and there's cold. And what we're really saying here is logic would tell you that duality exists and that causality is the basis for duality. There is no such thing as causality and duality once you leave the mind, once you leave the intellect, once you transcend your attachment to thinking your thoughts mean anything, to believing that your feelings mean anything, that your emotions mean anything. All thoughts, feelings, and emotions are directional arrows to see what is illusion and what is not illusion, to see where attachments and aversions are presenting themselves, to see where belief systems need to be surrendered over. The entirety of the mind presents us one moment after another moment after another moment, fueled by choice for the opportunity, the optimal ability to see that we're not these things. For if we were not presented with thoughts, feelings, and emotions, choice would not have applicability. This entire world that we find ourselves in is about choice. What are we going to choose? Even choice is an illusion from a particular standpoint, because the reality is that all things are happening dependent on the creator and independent of how we would see our separateness, meaning all is one, operating as a breath in and breath out of that which created us, completely out of our control from particular angles and completely within the choice matrix when you're coming from the intellect, when you're coming from love, even when you're coming from unconditional love. At the root of Christianity, if we put the religion aside, at the root of Jesus' teaching, love God above all else and your neighbor as yourself. It can be seen in such a capacity, in such a way, that the goal of Jesus' teaching, the goal of reaching a state of unconditional love, the goal of being something greater than what you believe you have the capacity to, is forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's what carries you from love into unconditional love. What carries you from reason into love is the reality and the truth behind the statement here. You have thoughts, you're not your thoughts. You have feelings, you're not your feelings. You have emotions, you're not your emotions. You have a body, you're not your body. All to arrive at, then what am I? What am I? If logic could answer what you actually are, there would be no need for God. But the reality is that all things other than the expressed witness and observation of the self with a capital S, presenting its nature into your subjective reality as a self-realized moment of such grandeur that words can't even describe it, that reason doesn't even have a place in that. When God presented God's infinite nature of love present to this individual speaking to you at age 20, there was no reason, there was no logic. There simply was just the presence of an infinite love in and around and through all things, visible, invisible, permeating this body, debilitating this mouth, humbling and stabilizing any thoughts to the degree that there were no longer calculated thought patterns. There were no longer choices. It was as if truth was being ushered in, pulled, extracted. And subsequent moments of divine connection presented the same exact nature until the doorway opened fully, and what presented itself was God everywhere. And today, that lens has not ceased. Today, Mason's in the world, but not of this world. Today, this life is lived like a prayer. This is shared with you from one perfect moment to the next perfect moment, not to create or cast a dispersion amongst anything that anybody else is doing or any other religion or any other religious figurehead, but to point to the reality that if this can be present for the person speaking to you here, it can also be present for you. And that's another way we can use reason. That's another way we can use logic to see through the falsehood of others. Meaning, if something is possible for one human, especially from a spiritual sense, it's possible for every other human. And because it's been possible for other humans in the past, it was presented as a reality within this field of consciousness for anyone past that, post that. Just like Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile and others breaking it after, the same thing is possible with regards to knowing God, finding truth, being one with a subjective reality that is anything but mundane, anything that is bound by false choices and false teachings and falsehoods of any kind. You can know God. You can reach that final doorway. You can surrender everything over. You can forgive everyone for everything around the clock. You can see that the only sin that mankind has is rooted in ignorance, and all things flow forth from that. In some particular way, the mind tries to categorize as other, as them, as something else. The mind is the program that creates the illusory aspect of separateness. The mind is what we set out to transcend with If You Live It. You cannot know God in the mind. You can read about a religion's figurehead. You could read about the Sermon on the Mount. You can read about the epic battle in the Bhagavad Gita. You can read about right action and right views and right mindfulness and right concentration and right livelihood. You can read about the way. You can read about heaven. Those are all things that come from the intellect, and the mind is reading about, not being. You can read about what it's like to be a father, but if you're not a man with a child, you have no idea. You can read about how to create a household that is committed to being a loving household, but until you're in the position where you have to forgive because you know the other person doesn't even know what they're doing and how they've forgiven you at the times you don't know what you're doing, you can't actually experience it. You can't actually talk from a place of knowingness. And until you know God, until you have moments where God has presented an infinite nature to you in reality that has changed your entire paradigm of existence, you don't know God. Because you go to church doesn't mean you know God. Because you attend a Gurdwara does not mean you know God. Because you go to a Hindu temple does not mean you know God. Because you find yourself in an ashram wearing particular clothes does not mean you know God. Does not mean you know truth. We are all on a journey back to the source. And this place is a choice matrix to allow us to choose heaven or hell in any moment. This brain and this body create compulsions fueled by the mind to choose things other than a connection with the divine. This entire thing called life is this giant matrix of illusion. Until you see that, you don't know that. And that's at the root of If You Live It, is the fact that everyone on this earth, for the most part, everyone, maybe a handful here or there, believe they're their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, believe they're their mind, believe they're their belief systems, believe that anger is worthy, believe that getting is better than giving, believe that taking is better than serving, believe that scarcity is a reality, believe that stress is debilitating. Believe, 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 believe. Like opinions, our beliefs are basically worthless. And at the root of worthless isn't that they are not valuable to move you in a place where reality can present itself differently, but when we have attachments and aversions to these belief systems as what we are, stumbling blocks, roadblocks, walls built in front of us that we must traverse. And how do we traverse it? In this chapter, we look at that from reason, we look at that from logic, we look at that from the amends process, the final piece of learning what forgiveness looks like. Forgiveness looks like making things right. Forgiveness looks like getting out of the way and letting God work miracles. Forgiveness looks like admitting to those things, peoples, places, and institutions that we have wronged, the exact nature of those wrongs. Not there to ask for forgiveness, but from a place of forgiveness to no longer making an excuse, but to make things right. At the root of chapter 9, at the root of step 9, is about making an amends. At the root of chapter 9, step 9 of If You Live It, is about choice. The choice to see the mind as just yet one more thing that needs to be transcended. The intellect as not God. No amount of philosophy, no amount of psychology, no amount of psychiatry, no amount of science, no amount of medicine, no amount of religion, no amount of reading is going to deliver you to a place beyond the mind. Service for the heart, or going through the mind, using surrender, forgiveness, finding yourself in a place of gratitude. These are mechanisms that you must emulate, that you must put into practice. These are the real spiritual principles that are at the heart of spirituality. Spirituality is not sitting somewhere in a yoga pose, having your picture taken for Instagram. Spirituality is not crystals. Spirituality is not a surfing retreat. Now, within a surfing retreat, being connected to the waves and the ocean and riding the crest of the wave is spirituality. seeing the beauty of the crystallization of things in nature over time, manifesting the karma of that particular pressure over eons, coming out to be something as beautiful as this pink, black, brown, blue, green stone sitting in your hand is spiritual. Seeing past the facade of the thing, the belief system that you put around the thing, the definition you've given to the thing. Seeing at the root of religion is man's attempt to make sense of life and death and to connect with the teachings of the figurehead of the religion, seeing it, letting go of your attachment to believing that your religion is better than another's, or another is going to hell because you believe this particular thing, or that religious texts are meant to be taken literally. The only thing that's meant to be taken literally within a religion is the practicality, the practicing of things. The reason you have service at the root of a pathway to God is because you have to walk down a road where you are helping another. The quickest way to get outside of yourself is to go find a way to help someone else. Service, surrender, forgiveness, gratitude. These are wonderful gifts that God has given us that gives us a whole different choice matrix within this gigantic matrix that could take us in an infinite amount of directions. The beautiful thing is, no matter where you go, you are still connected to God. You are not a sinful, fallen creature. You have agreed to come into this body for a very specific reason at this time, in this place, so that you can experience something or learn something or be part of something and work off a particular karma set that allows you to then enter back where you were with more firsthand knowledge about what it is that choice actually presents. Choice always leads back to God. Because from one goalpost to the other goalpost of life is choice coming in and choice of knowing before we came in when we were going to leave. There is never not choice. God is constant choice. Now, the beautiful thing is you can never choose outside of God. It only appears that way. This thing is like a giant video game. And the person playing the game and you experiencing the game are the same thing. Except you think you're the avatar in the game. That's what you believe yourself to be because it's been created this way. It hasn't been created this way so that we could wake up in heaven here. It's been created this way so there's this illusion that we're not in heaven here. We are the ones from particular vantage point before enlightenment ever sets in, before nirvana is ever reality, that have the opportunity to make this place more heavenly or more hellish. Right now, there is fear and evil and lower levels of consciousness, lower levels of humanity that is doing its best to try and create chaos and havoc around the world because it doesn't want love to win now. That doesn't mean this place isn't perfect. This place doesn't need us to change it in any way other than the way that we see fit with regards to, are we going to bring more love into this world or are we going to bring more hate into this world? It's the same thing with reason. It's the same thing with logic. Are we going to see that there are confines to it, that it does not actually deliver us to a place of a firsthand experiential reality of the divine? Or are we going to continue to believe that religion is God? It's up to you. It's up to you. Are you going to read this book and not put anything into application? Are you going to try and get sober by just going to meetings without actually getting a sponsor and working the steps and being part of the community and serving that community within a home group and in other ways? It's not going to work for you. You're not going to find relief from the self. You're not going to find an end to suffering if you just read about and continue to let someone else tell you what it is you need to do. Start doing it. Start being it. That's if you live it. That's the Eightfold Path. That's the lifestyle of Hinduism. That's being one with the way. Again, I'm Mason Wooldridge. This is If You Live It. You can find all this content and more, including the meetings to come, on ifyouliveit.com. Continue with these videos. Thank you for being present here and part of this community. For years to come, these videos will remain, and I can't wait to see what happens with them. I cannot wait to see how God uses this community, this growing community around the world, to bring more love to the world as a collective choice. Many blessings. I hope this was of value to some of you watching this. That which you did not find pertinent to you, freely let it go. I love you, even though I don't know you, because in loving you, I'm actually loving me, and loving us for loving God. Many blessings. Till next time.